looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Be the Change Media Network. If you saw that before, that was a little glitch. We're on the Wi-Fi. Hopefully it sticks.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. But welcome to another episode of Be the Change Podcast Live. This one's a little bit more of a checking in with Changemakers because I just featured my guest on Be the Change Podcast. However, there's a little disclaimer that we recorded that episode back in the fall, towards the end of the summer. So there's a lot to check in about. And so this is an update on Olivia Clarke, who is my guest today. So I'm going to have you give a little intro as to who you are, the work that you're doing, and then we'll dive in from there. And the other special part about this is that we're in Manchester, where Olivia's from, and she does a lot of her work. So it's even more exciting for me. So let's dive in.
Welcome. So my name is Olivia Clarke. I'm 21 years old, and I'm an activist and campaigner. Still trying to figure out kind of what my title is, because I don't think I like either of them. But I've been advocating for better social mobility for working class young people for the past 10 years. So that started when I was 12 years old, and I've been on kind of a journey ever since with that. And I'm project coordinator at Young Manchester. I also do their comms, and I'm also a trustee at Reclaim.
Lots going on.
Lots of
Lots to
titles.
talk about. So before we get started, I want to get a little overview on, we talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but tell me more about Manchester and your experience growing up, what young people care about here. Tell me a little bit about that, just especially as we're here. I think it's definitely something that I want to know more about.
Yeah, I think, first of all, to say that young people care, I think that's definitely something.
That's
point
the
blank.
starting point.
I think that's something that people always assume that young people don't care, and that they don't care about issues happening within their community. And I think young people in Manchester are really passionate and really vocal about what it is that we want to see change. And we've seen that through different things changing over the years, and through things, campaigns and stuff that I've worked on. I think young people, especially Mancunian young people, are very bold and very proud to be Mancunian. And it's always kind of tends to be in the sentence when we introduce ourselves. It's like, we are Northern Mancunian young people. I'd say we're really passionate and very vocal about what it is we want to see change. And I think that it's very personal to us, rather than it being like a one-size-fits-all experience. I think we're all very unique in that.
Interesting. Okay, so for you, I know that some people have issues that they maybe prioritize their activism around, or that they're really, really passionate about based on their own experiences. Does anything like that come to mind for you, or are you very intersectional with the work that you do?
I think I tried to be intersectional, but everything definitely falls under the umbrella of like working class issues. Okay. With my main goal being to reform the education system, so that it works for all young people and not just those that can afford it. So I think definitely all under the umbrella of working class young people and are the issues that we face. And then now, as I'm like transitioning like post-degree, definitely with more an educational lens.
Okay, tell me about your dissertation. I know it's kind of looming. We were talking about this a little bit before. So tell me about what you're studying and kind of maybe how it ties into your work. It seems like you're doing the education side of education, and you're also doing the activism, which I think I love because it seems very holistic. So tell me about what you're studying.
Yeah, so I'm currently a third-year student at Manchester Metropolitan University.
Shout out.
Plugging them, pardon me. And I study education. So my dissertation at the minute is focusing on education and social class. I'm losing my voice. Can I grab my water quickly?
Yes.
Sorry, guys.
It's reality. Yes. Talking lots.
Honestly.
In high demand.
Anywho, third-year student studying education. And my dissertation is focusing on the relationship between social class and education, specifically looking at how the English curriculum reproduces class inequality. So I'm very passionate about the educational divide. I can feel this is hilarious.
Good, yes, grab it again.
If it's not the Wi-Fi.
Goodness. First we have the Wi-Fi, and then we have to listen to the voice.
You know what? I'm going to put it on the
place
floor
today. Yeah,
honestly,
that's perfect.
This is just authentic. Okay, Be the Change is authentic.
We love it.
So I'm specifically really interested in that educational divide and the differences in our paths or like journeys of success because of education, and the impact that has, because we all experience education from such a young age, how that sets us off on different paths, literally just because of our different educational experiences, particularly those of working class young people being underfunded and not having those same experiences as those that are privately educated and are able to afford that better education. So my dissertation is specifically focusing on the English curriculum because I just wanted to kind of tailor that focus because there's so many things wrong with the curriculum as a whole. It was definitely kind of better for me to focus my lens on that. So
yeah. That is really interesting, and I think that is something that we see some in the U.S., but I think it's much more, since I've been here and the more that I understand, I think it's a lot more defined, those divisions in the UK, and I think that goes back to, there's historical roots, you know more than I do. I don't need to explain that to you, but yeah, that's really interesting. So tell me about your work with Young Manchester. I think that's something that we didn't touch on as much because I feel like I didn't have enough time to ask you these questions in the podcast. So tell me about what that looks like in the work that you're doing now.
Yes. So currently I am project coordinator at Young Manchester. I'm also in charge of the comms as well, but I'll start with the project coordination. In terms of being a project coordinator, I co-facilitate the ambassador program alongside my colleague Hassan, and we deliver workshops and tailored opportunities for young people aged 15 to 22 to kind of get on board their own change-making journey or support them one-to-one mentoring, and just guide them as young people trying to figure out this world. And Hassan and I definitely haven't figured out the world, but it is fabulous to be able to provide that support to them and deliver those workshops. And also just like fun days out as well. We'll go to like Nando's or we'll go to bowling and stuff, and just providing that experience for those young people is really rewarding, especially because that's kind of how my journey started. To be able to do that for other young people is really nice. And then in terms of communications, it's just, social media, make sure everything's up to date, the website, Instagram, all that jazz. So,
Wow, that's a lot though. I think the events too are really, I think the more that you can integrate the fun into it, and that you can say, let's have this night out or let's have this afternoon out and also talk about things that are important and also have these discussions. I think that's definitely the way to frame it, where it doesn't feel as formal or it doesn't feel as, I don't know, scary maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
But, tell me about, are you still working with Reclaim?
Yes. Okay. So I sit on their board as a trustee, which is very full circle for me, as I started there when I was 12. So I first started as a 12-year-old, which I mentioned in the podcast. I had no intention to stay for more than a week. I was literally there for food and something to do during half term. And I will proudly say that I had no intention to stay. But I ended up staying. It's coming up 10 years now. And obviously now I sit on the board as a trustee. Now I'm about to sneeze. This is fabulous. All the motions.
Everything's happening.
Everything is happening. Of course it is. Brilliant.
The Wi-Fi will probably be nice.
Yeah, fabulous. But yeah, my journey with Reclaim, I started off as a young person who cried at everything. I was very confident and passionate in the way I was as a young girl, but I didn't know how to use that in the most proactive way. And Reclaim really guided me with that and showed me how I can use my voice in productive spaces and mainly challenging politicians, which was always really nice and interesting. And that kind of took me on a wild journey of campaigning and advocating, and it was just a really nice experience of development as well, and has opened the door to so many opportunities, like working at Young Manchester was one of them. And then now I sit on the board as a trustee, as their first young trustee, connecting the youth board with the adult board, ensuring that young people's voices are kind of running throughout the whole organisation, right from what they're doing on a day-to-day to kind of the governance level, which is really cool.
That is really cool. So what does that look like, I guess, in practice? Do you go to the youth meetings and also the adult meetings and just kind of translate the message? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I haven't actually started that bit yet, but what the plan is for me to attend the youth board and then kind of relay those messages to the big board, but also bringing in those young people as well, because I think although it is great to have their voices passed on through me, it would even better to have them sat at the table and show them kind of what a board experience is like, because that is something that I didn't have before I joined Reclaim's board. And that was really overwhelming on my first experience. So to be able to kind of break down the narrative of boards and that they're all really scary is really kind of what my aim is, and to show these young people that they can be sat around these decision-making tables.
I think that is so important. Like you were saying, I think you can translate some of the issues, but also bringing people in and saying, you have your time, you speak to these people. That's even more as important or just as important. And I think that's amazing. So tell me about I know that we're getting closer towards the end of the year, which is a little bit scary with the dissertation and everything.
Yeah.
But what are you expecting to do next year, this summer? Do you have things that you're planning on? Do you have tell me about that as much as you want to? I know it's a little bit nerve-wracking. So.
Well, planning is my thing, but do I have a plan for this? No.
Okay.
But I'm one of those people that has so many ideas, it's just trying to make them happen.
That's how I am. I'm like, okay, well, I could do this or this or this.
Literally.
Like, really? Slow down.
Just slow down.
Figure out one thing.
It's like, change the world. How am I going to get there? And I think for me, it is kind of after graduation, trying to figure out how I achieve my goals and how I get there. And I've been discussing this a lot with my friends recently. We are in the education system for so long, and we're programmed into like the 9 till 3, and we have deadlines, we have homework when it's due, and we have this structure that we're raised in, and graduating is removing that structure from my life, which is quite scary because that is something that I've had shaping my day-to-day from 5 years old. And I'm seeing amongst my friends that that's a shared experience, that we're all kind of a bit nervous about losing that structure because we don't now have that shared experience of going to school together. So I think for me, I'm definitely going to be going with the flow for a little while.
Yeah.
I have goals that I want to achieve, but I think I just need to figure out how I'm going to get there. And I think removing the pressure on myself is what I need to do, because I think, like I say, with the school system being so embedded into our day-to-day, we didn't have the pressure of like not knowing what was next. It's like, what's after year 9, year 10?
Exactly.
What's after year 10, year 11? And then you know kind of what's next constantly. So yeah, I think definitely just riding the wave and hopefully one day changing the education system.
you know,
just that.
But I think that's such a good point. And I think that it's so important for you to share that, because I remember I was feeling the exact same thing. And my friends, we had a similar conversation where it was like, okay, so now there's not that next step. And I think after you graduate high school in the US, but it's like, okay, most of us are going to college, some are going into the workforce, but like it's kind of a shared experience. Like, okay, we're sticking in this. It is a transition as to where and stuff, but then when you are leaving college, it's like, okay, now we're all in completely different things. We're all over the place. So I think it is the first time that you're put out into the world, and it's a little bit scary, but it's exciting too. And I think you have lots of things that you could do and lots of ways to get to changing the education system. Do you think that you're going to stay in Manchester?
I really don't want to.
Okay.
Sorry, Mom, if you can see this.
Oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting that. Tell me about what's next.
Do you know what it is? I think because I didn't move out of Manchester for university, I'm very much now like, I need to go out and experience things. So London is on the radar, especially with it being like the political hub, and being in and around that space, I think would be a really beneficial experience for me. I do see myself like being in Manchester probably permanently at the back end of my life. I say that now, but I probably won't be. Who knows where I'll be, but I do think like a move is in the works.
Yeah. That's so exciting. I think London too is such a great, it's close enough here that you get back often and stuff. And I think that is really cool too, to like want to be in London, then maybe coming back. But seeing another part of the country and being able to
having
have
the
those
option.
experiences. Yeah. That's so exciting. And you have so many connections through the different organizations that you've been working with. So I'm sure that something will work. I'm not worried about you at all.
If anybody wants to give me a job.
Anybody listening.
Anybody's hiring. No, I'm joking.
That's how I felt. I'm literally like, okay, so can I work with that organization that you just mentioned? Would that be okay?
Yeah, would that be okay? I'm saying this sat in my own, my work's office right now. I'm not going anywhere. Just to let you know.
Just to let everyone know. Sorry, disclaimers.
Disclaimer, but London is on the mind.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me about some of the work that you have coming up. Do you have any work with Young Manchester or with Reclaim? You said that you're going to be kind of starting that position. Tell me what's next as far as your activism, advocacy, everything.
Yeah, I think as everyone would have seen recently, My Life, My Say, Shape History and I Will have taken over when it comes to youth registration. So I think my involvement in that will be stepping up a bit. And being able to support them and sharing that message on yourself as well, because I know you're involved.
So exciting. It's so exciting.
Honestly, it's wild. And to be able to support them with that will be really interesting and go on that journey. So I think that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to, and spreading that message to get every young person registered to vote. And I think that's something that I'm quite passionate about as well, especially like in the north, because we are quite underrepresented. So I think that, and then in terms of like personal stuff, I want to kind of get into my own like campaigning journey vibe, especially with the education topic, of course, in case I didn't mention it. But with Young Manchester, I think there's exciting things coming for the organisation, and we're kind of taking like a new approach with things, which will be really nice and really refreshing. And then with Reclaim as well. I think for me, because I've got all these different like branches and sections of my life, it's kind of really nice to bring them to like my Instagram, for example, and being able to share that. And I think
your Instagram is like the most active. I wanted to talk about this because you are so good with posting and you're so consistent, and I think that you might be like the best that I've seen about it. Like
thanks.
you are so good and on it, and I think it's amazing. So everyone follow her Instagram. We'll do a little plug at the end, but anyways, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
But I think as well, like for a lot of my friends, they find it quite strange that I do this because it's not like the stereotypical thing to do, especially from my area as well. So I think it is nice to be able to use kind of Instagram and like opportunities like this to show people that kind of normal people do this thing, and it is like it is for everyone. So I think that's kind of the route I'm going to go down, is like showing young people that kind of activism and change making is for all of us, because I think it can be quite exclusionary in like the way it shows itself. So that's kind of how I hope to use my platform.
That is really interesting. Can you tell me about, I was thinking about this just when I was coming here actually, but you have two separate accounts. You have your own personal and your activism. Tell me about that decision, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that was a decision I struggled with, because it's not like I have two lives. There's no need for them to be separate. But I think the way my mind is, it's just nicer to separate them. And I think because like I have not the aesthetic vibe, but like my personal life is like I want to be able to post that. And I was thinking about merging the two. But then I know there's like conversations around professionalism and stuff like that. And it's a difficult thing that I'm trying to figure out the balance. I definitely still do try to post activism-y things on my main account. But like I said as well, like among my friends, it's not necessarily the normal thing to do. So I don't want to like bombard them with all that as well. And give them the option to follow me elsewhere.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's what I think about a lot with my own stuff, where I think my own Instagram has been like hibernating because I'm just like so involved with the other one now. And like, but I think that, like you said, it gives people an option. They can tune in if they are interested in these topics. And I think often people may not want to be engaged in politics all the time. And I think it's giving people that choice, which I think is really respectful, but it also can be difficult when it's kind of that duality of like the personal and the work, and I don't know, it's interesting. But
I think it's also healthy, because I think some people within this space allow activism and change making to completely consume them. So I think it is almost like a physical separation for me, that I can separate my personal and my work life, although they are really heavily intertwined. I am able to, that's kind of just like a physical way to do it, and they're both public, people can have access to both. They're not kind of like wildly different, but I do think they serve different purposes and kind of show the different sections of me, I guess. I think as well it's interesting because my friends say, you look at your personal Instagram and you wouldn't think you like do the politics thing, and I'm like, it's like a little surprise.
That's interesting though. I hadn't thought about the mental health piece, because I think that's also true, where you can have, also for me, when I look at my like For You pages for both of the accounts, so different. Like it's like opportunities and like change making, and then it's like memes and like whatever else I'm watching, like ridiculous stuff. But that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about the mental health part, but I do think for me also implicitly it's like I do kind of have that division. I click the little double tap thing and then it's entirely different. So
new personality.
Nice. So I'm going to ask you the signature question that I asked a couple months ago, and your answer may not have changed that much. I know that I just put the podcast out, so lots of young people want to create change, want to make a difference, but they may not know how to get started with that work. What advice do you have for those people who may be listening?
I think I probably said it last time, but just do it. I think a lot of young people, and the way society is set up, they constantly tell us not to do something because we're too young, or because you can't vote yet, and because I don't know, you shouldn't have a voice because you're not a politician, and that isn't the way it is. Just because you're not sat in the House of Commons doesn't mean you don't have a voice, and it doesn't mean that you don't have the power to make change. And I think, just being bold and brave enough to start that journey is the most important thing. And if you're not, that's fine too. It is a process, and it takes time, and it takes commitment, and it takes energy. And I'd be lying if I said I hadn't like fallen in and out of love with the experience. So I think just set yourself the challenge to start and see where you go from there, because it is wild. You never know what the next opportunity is going to be, and you are going to go on a roller coaster. But I guess, the first step is getting on the roller coaster and being happy with going on that ride. So
yeah, definitely. I love that. I think the just do it advice. I love when people say that, because I think there's lots of people that just need that push. They need that encouragement. Just you got to take that step. You got to go to the meeting. You got to find the organization, do Google search, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
What are the best ways for people to get connected with you? Plug the activism account. Everyone needs to follow her on Instagram. Tell me about that.
So Twitter is Olivia Lacey 2. LinkedIn is Olivia Clarke, and then my Instagram is Liv Clarke Activism. If you happen to find the personal, then you find the personal. But they're the three that are kind of the best ways to reach me. So,
amazing. And I'll put all of those in the podcast description as well, which is gonna go out right after this. But thank you so much for watching us, and if you're listening to the podcast, for listening. And if you have the time, leave a rating, a comment, and subscribe to the podcast, because it helps me reach more listeners and share more inspiring, amazing people like Olivia with all of you. So, any other final words? Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for coming to Manchester. No final words other than, if you're in Manchester, My Life My Say's Democracy Cafe tonight, 5:30 till 7:30 at Foundation Coffee House on Whitworth Street.
Amazing. We'll be there.
We'll both be there.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.